Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
It's the story that President Trump can't escape. Did he have sex with an adult film actress over a decade ago? He denies it and has denied knowing anything about an alleged hush payment made by one of his lawyers to Stormy Daniels shortly before the presidential election. But last night, another Trump lawyer, former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, contradicted this. He said that Trump had in fact reimbursed the lawyer who'd made the payment. The news has reignited questions about whether Trump's team broke campaign finance laws. Well, Kylie Morris is in Washington. Kylie.
So many questions, Matt. I'll come back to Rudy Giuliani and why he might have done this in a moment, but there's a significant development here in the case of Michael Cohen, so the guy who paid that $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, and as we now understand, it was reimbursed by the president. So the American network NBC is now reporting that the FBI had wiretapped Cohen for at least weeks before the raid on his home and offices and hotel room a month ago. So this is the president's, former right-hand guy, the lawyer who sorted out these kinds of things, as Giuliani described him. Investigators now potentially with a treasure trove of evidence about the way he conducted business on behalf of his client, the president. But I think it is that Cohen investigation that explains why Rudy Giuliani got into all of this in such a spectacular fashion last night. It's very likely that details of how this payment was made to Stormy Daniels would have come out, so it's likely Rudy Giuliani was simply really trying to get ahead of all this and manage it. As you mentioned, it's National Prayer Day here, so we've just had the spectacle of Donald Trump leading religious leaders in prayer in the Rose Garden. The day it's revealed he repaid his lawyer for hush money to a porn star. But welcome to Washington 2018.
We pray for a time to turn away from hate.
We can't know what prayers the president's supporters were sending at the White House International Prayer Breakfast today. But the president, who evangelical pastors helped to elect, focused on redemption and renewal. Perhaps he was thinking of himself.
Prayer changes hearts and transforms lives.
Like most stories of the Trump era, this one has twists and turns aplenty and cameos from fixers and priests. Bear with me and we can get up to speed. This is Stephanie Clifford, also known as Stormy Daniels. She's an adult film star with whom the president denies having an affair 10 years ago.
How do we know you're telling the truth?
Because I have no reason to lie.
Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, made a payment to her just weeks before the 2016 election. The president always denied he knew anything about it. He was asked about it on Air Force One. Did he know about the payment? He says no. Does he know where Cohen got the money? Do you know where he got the money to make that payment? No, I don't know. He says no, I don't know. But here's the thing. Michael Cohen, the president's fixer, is now under investigation himself. His office was raided. He's been in court trying to keep his paperwork from prying eyes on account of attorney-client privilege. One of his clients was Donald Trump.
If I was subpoenaed,
another one was Sean Hannity. And that's how we get to last night. This is Rudy Giuliani, Republican rabble-rouser and newly appointed legal advisor to the president.
Paying some Stormy Daniels woman $130,000? I mean,
last night he goes on Sean Hannity's show and defends the payment, but kind of implicates his boss at the same time.
I'm giving you a fact now that you don't know. It's not campaign money. No campaign finance violation.
So they funneled it through the law firm.
Funneled through the law firm, and the president repaid it.
Oh, I didn't know he did.
Yeah.
Hang on, how did he repay it if he didn't know about it? And when did he know? Because his spokeswoman didn't say that back in March. She said
that there was no knowledge of any payments from the president, and he's denied all of these allegations.
They can't even believe it.
Rudy Giuliani suggests President Trump needn't have known at the time what the payment was for because he paid Michael Cohen to look after these things. In any case, it was his personal money, remember, not campaign funds, so it didn't break campaign financing laws. Or did it?
The dividing line here is whether the payment was made for campaign purposes or if it was simply a personal expense that the lawyer was paying for Mr. Trump.
I suppose a personal expense for a person who is running for president and the election's just a couple of weeks away slightly changes the context, doesn't it?
That certainly gives a lot of ammunition to critics and to opponents to say that, look, no matter how you dress this up, at the end of the day, it was a campaign contribution.
This morning on Twitter, the president's account seems written in legalese. 3 tweets not in his usual style. There are commas and lengthy sentences. The key phrases: not from the campaign, nothing to do with the campaign, and to end, money from the campaign or campaign contributions played no role in this transaction, with role misspelt for good measure.
Hi, everyone.
But Stormy Daniels and her $130,000 payment is only part of this drama. The president's lead counsel for the Russia inquiry, Ty Cobb, yesterday announced he's retiring to be replaced by Emmett Flood, a specialist in potential impeachment.
We are seeing the president resetting his legal team as the moment of truth arrives vis-a-vis a possible sit-down interview with Bob Mueller.
It's a great day.
The president may soon face a reckoning on more than one front, and his new defense team wants to say, bring it on.
Kylie Morris there. Well, I'm joined now from Nashville, Tennessee by conservative political commentator Scotty Nell Hughes, and from Washington, D.C. by Paul Ryan, a campaign finance lawyer at watchdog group Common Cause. Welcome to you both. Scotty Nell Hughes, the fact that Trump seems to be getting his lawyers now to write his tweets, is that an indication of how worried he is about all this?
I don't know if it's an indication of how worried he is or something he should have been doing from the very beginning. Listen, as your reporter accurately pointed out, this has a lot of twists and turns and a lot of unknown factors. But right now, there are 2 different courts that we're ruling in, the court of law and the court of public opinion. The court of law, you're going to have to prove that President Trump knew about this and that he specifically gave the money to Stormy Daniels to cover up. But however, the court of public opinion, he's already being tried with the jury and is losing, as this has been the dominant headline here in the United States all morning long.
But is he really losing? Because the impression I get from this side of the pond is that the outrage about this, especially from conservative Americans, is really quite small compared to the outrage they felt about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky 2 decades ago.
Well, listen, we're not talking about unemployment being at the lowest it's been in 45 years. We're not talking about 3 people being released from prison in North Korea or the progress we're making on peace. Instead, we are talking about Stormy Daniels. So I do think this just shows the chaotic communication strategy not coming out of the White House. And last night, Mayor Giuliani, whether it was strategic to get ahead of it or not, just poured kerosene on a fire that was already burning.
Paul Ryan, does he have a legal problem here, or is this, as Scotty just said, mainly a public opinion problem?
I think President Trump has a serious legal problem now, particularly because of Rudy Giuliani's statements last night and Donald Trump's own tweets this morning confirming that he, in fact, reimbursed Michael Cohen for this payment to Stormy Daniels. That's an undisclosed campaign expenditure by Donald Trump. He's put himself on the hook now for a criminal violation of law.
And is that more serious than anything that might come out of the Mueller investigation in terms of any alleged collusion with Russia, for instance?
I certainly wouldn't say it's more serious, but I think it is on equal footing, and it seems to be further along. We have more evidence now of actual violations of existing federal laws related to the Stormy Daniels payment than we do in the Russia probe. I think the Mueller's Russia probe is a very important investigation. Common Cause supports it fully, and it may lead to some evidence of very serious violations. But this Stormy Daniels matter seems to be unfolding very, very rapidly, and it's really bad news for Donald Trump and Michael Cohen.
Scotty Nell Hughes, let me ask you a very profound question for a change. Do you think that when Donald Trump invokes the divine, when he talks about piety, that he actually believes in God?
Well, I think he should believe in God, and I hope that he does, and he has asked forgiveness. That's where this issue becomes more of a personal issue and not a political issue. All of this is going back to, was he trying to cover up in order to influence the campaign? And let's be honest with us, Stormy Daniels, would she really have affected when we had things like the Access Hollywood tape coming out, we had other accusations from women? That's still, President Trump still was elected in the November election. Or is this more of a personal issue between him and his wife that they need to deal with? Was that more what he was trying to do to not have to deal with that at the time?
But when he talks piety, when he does God, does it actually ring true?
Well, we do have to believe as people of faith in forgiveness, and that our God might forgive us doesn't necessarily mean that the American people will as well.
Okay, but the evangelical voters, especially in the South and the Bible Belt, who were outraged about the behavior of any number of politicians, including, of course, Bill Clinton, seem to be incredibly lax when it comes to the behavior of Donald Trump. Why is that?
Well, Well, there's a big difference. Bill Clinton was in office when he continued these types. Nobody ever hired President Trump or went in and voted for him because of his moral stance. More is just what he was saying he was going to do for our country. I think that's the big divide between evangelical Christians right now, holding him accountable. If these actions were going on while he was president of the United States, I know that they would hold his feet to the fire. But these were all things that happened before he said that he became an evangelical Christian or became a man of faith.
Paul Ryan, what does it say about America that there seems to be a remarkable tolerance for the president's rather unusual moral behavior, shall we say, even if he did it before he came to office?
Well, Common Cause is not a moral police. Common Cause is interested in this issue and is pressing for investigation because American voters have a right to know who's spending money to influence their vote on Election Day. Here, there was a big payment, $130,000, to influence voters, to keep information away from voters, and Donald Trump and his team covered it up. That's why Common Cause is involved in this whole matter and filing complaints, pressing for investigations and prosecutions.
Scotty Nell Hughes, finally one to you. Could Stormy Daniels bring down President Trump?
Absolutely not. Nothing that President Trump did, while it might be morally wrong, it wasn't anything criminal. Even if they do somehow tie him to this, it's just a simple violation with the FEC.
Okay, Scotty Nell Hughes, Paul Ryan, thank you very much indeed to both of you.
Donald Trump has been known to contradict himself on occasions, but now he finds himself accused of lying, and it could be very serious for him. It's about hush money paid to the adult film actress Stormy Daniels. He's long maintained he knew nothing of the $130,000 payments by his lawyer just before he was elected president. Now, Mr. Trump's team has acknowledged that he did reimburse the lawyer.
The timing was supremely ironic. This president, beleaguered and besieged by mounting legal worries.
Please, thank you.
Today leading America in a national day of prayer.
Prayer is the key that opens us the treasures of God's mercies and blessings.
As he implored Americans to pray, he faces new questions about a payment to a porn star ahead of the 2016 election, allegedly to buy her silence.
Shame on you. This is a prayer meeting, please.
At the heart of this are two characters, the actress Stormy Daniels and Trump's former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen. He paid her the money, but was that a breach of campaign finance laws? And did the president know?
Joining us now for an exclusive interview.
And now Rudy Giuliani, the president's newest lawyer and the former mayor of New York, says Trump knew about that payment.
It's not campaign money. No campaign finance violation.
So they funneled it through the law firm.
Funneled through the law firm, and the president repaid it.
Oh, I didn't know he did.
Yep.
There's no campaign finance law.
Zero.
Yet a month ago aboard Air Force One, the president had a different story.
President, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? Then why did Michael Cohen make this if there was no truth or allegation?
Well, you have to ask Michael Cohen. Michael's my attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael.
I'm not going to be able
With the pressure mounting and the earlier White House narrative now holed below the waterline, the daily press briefing was even more combative than usual.
Were you lying to us at the time, or were you in the dark?
The president has denied and continues to deny the underlying claim. And again, I've given the best information I had at the time.
So the president faces legal peril on two fronts. Firstly, the investigation into Michael Cohen's activities, including the payment to Stormy Daniels. And secondly, of course, always in the background, the Mueller probe into alleged collusion with Russia. And tonight, in a fresh glimpse of the scope of both investigations, it has emerged that phone calls made by Michael Cohen were bugged by the FBI, potentially including his calls with the president. Donald Trump and his legal team now appear to be readying for a final showdown. Robert Moore, News at 10, Washington.
Donald Trump has changed his story, which is a strangely unsurprising statement. Having denied any knowledge of a $130,000 payment to the former porn actress Stormy Daniels on the eve of the presidential election, he has now said that not only did he know about it, the money came from his own pocket. Earlier this evening, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders faced a relentless interrogation about the complete volte-face.
You said on March 7th there was no knowledge of any payments from the president, and he's denied all of these allegations. Were you lying to us at the time, or were you in the dark?
The president has denied and continues to deny the underlying claim. And again, I've given the best information I had at the time. And I would refer you back to the comments that you yourself just mentioned a few minutes ago about the timeline from Mayor Giuliani.
That statement, but Sarah, that statement was in reference to the reimbursement, the payment.
Again, I gave you the best information that I had. And the allegations, the president has denied and continues to deny the underlying claim. Why can't you just answer yes or no whether you were in the dark? I think it's a fairly simple question whether you just didn't have the information. I think it's a fairly simple answer that I've given you actually several times now. I gave you the best information that I had, and I'm going to continue to do my best to do that every single day.
Frenzy in the press room. Well, a recap. For weeks, the White House has denied all allegations of an affair between Daniels and President Trump, along with any knowledge of the payment made by lawyer Michael Cohen. Here's the president speaking on board Air Force One just a month ago.
Mr. President, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? No. Then why did Michael Cohen make it if there was no truth or allegation?
Well, you have to ask Michael Cohen. Michael's my attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael.
Do you know where he got the money to make that payment?
No, I don't know.
Yet last night, Rudy Giuliani, who's only been Trump's lawyer for a fortnight, took to Fox TV to blow that story apart, apparently with his client's blessing.
Sorry, I'm giving you a fact now that you don't know. It's not campaign money. No campaign finance violation. So
they funneled it through the law firm.
Funneled through the law firm, and the president repaid it.
Oh, I didn't know he did.
Yep.
There's no campaign finance law.
Zero.
Well, after the interview, Giuliani claimed Trump was very pleased with what he'd said last night. So what is happening here? Joining me now to discuss is prominent U.S. civil rights attorney Lisa Bloom, who herself has represented 4 women accusing President Trump of sexual misconduct, and from the Washington Post newsroom, senior editor and co-author of Trump Revealed, Mark Fisher. Good evening to you both. Lisa Bloom, Trump authorized Giuliani to change the story. Trump knew the money was paid to Stormy Daniels. The president of the U.S. has essentially been caught lying. Why reveal that he paid her off now?
I think he has to, because the FBI raided Michael Cohen's office recently, and that's Trump's attorney who made the $130,000 payment. Surely that raid revealed the financial records that showed that the payment happened and that showed that the repayment, the reimbursement happened. So having lied and said he didn't know anything about it, and that the payment was made only by Michael Cohen, now he's caught because there are records to show otherwise, so now he's trying to clean it up. It's an absolute mess, and let's be clear, the President of the United States has lied to us.
But we're in a situation now where it's clear that he is saying that it was personal money went into that payment that Michael Cohen then paid out. So therefore, that would suggest that he thinks that that avoids any idea that there's a violation of the use of campaign funds.
Yeah, except for the law. And the law says that if you make a loan to somebody for the purpose of influencing the election, and clearly that's what happened here because the election was only about a week later, now Donald Trump, through his terrible attorney, Rudy Giuliani, is saying that that loan was made and then repaid later. Well, a loan is a campaign finance contribution. It has to be reported. Simply saying it's not doesn't change the fact that the law says it is, and I think that he's in deep trouble.
Well, Mark Fisher, that was an extraordinary White House press briefing with Sarah Sanders. I mean, under serious pressure, and it looked like the press secretary was being kept in the dark. I mean, is that pretty extraordinary?
Well, no, I think that's fairly standard in this administration. The press secretary only knows what the president has told her. The president basically acts as his own communications director. In this case, what we're seeing is that Rudy Giuliani is privately meeting with the president, having phone calls, and they're cooking up this new strategy, and they don't bother to tell anybody else about it. So neither the White House lawyers nor the press secretary knew anything about Giuliani's plan to go out and reveal this and say that the president essentially had lied in his previous statement. In Donald Trump's mind, there is no past tense. This is all happening right in the moment, and so in the moment, it makes sense for him to now admit or have someone admit for him that this payment took place.
Does it matter, do you think? I mean, you've written about President Trump. Does it matter to President Trump that essentially America and indeed the world know that he has been untruthful about this? Does it actually cross his consciousness?
I don't think it matters to him in the least. What he's doing is protecting himself. He's using his new lawyer to protect him from legal jeopardy, he hopes, in this instance. And that has nothing to do with anything that came before or will come in the future. He may well go back to saying that he never made any such payment. His track record through the years is that he will often revert to the original lie when it's beneficial to him to do so. What people think of him in this case really is not an issue, because that's already baked in. That's factored in going back to Access Hollywood and all of the previous problems.
So the fact is, though, Lisa Bloom, that there's no sense in which any of this will actually stick.
Oh, I think there's a strong sense that it's going to stick. I mean, Stormy Daniels is not giving up. Her attorney is not giving up. They're going to see this through, they say, until the truth is revealed to the American people. And we've already seen this lie exposed. It's absolutely appalling. I think there's also some major issues with Trump's attorney, Michael Cohen, which is why Trump is turning on him now, planting a negative article about him in the National Enquirer, for example. I think he's trying to distance himself from Michael Cohen. I think there's some major potential bank fraud issues, finance, accounting issues. I think we have a long way to go until we get to the bottom of this.
But Mark Fisher, you know, if President Trump is going to make significant improvements in North Korea, you know, if he's taking taxes down, if he's improving the economy, nothing that in his base is going to say anything, well, actually, it's not going to make any difference what we think of him. That's his personal predilections. Our lives are getting better.
Well, exactly, and they will see this as one more instance in a long series of cases in which Donald Trump kind of pushes back against the elites, pushes back against the powers that be, in this case pushes back against the investigation against him. And so those who cheer him on in all the ways that he is a great disruptor, their view of him is only going to be enhanced by this image of him essentially saying, hey, I can lie and get away with it.
And Lisa Bloom, you know, the Republicans aren't going to bring him down, are they?
I doubt that. They've stuck with him through thick and thin, but the American people have a midterm election coming up later this year. I think there's a blue wave of Democrats. There are a lot of women running in particular. I've been doing a lot of events in support of them, and I think there's going to be a backlash. I think people, whatever their political party, expect a president who tells us the truth. You know, Americans are a very forgiving people. If somebody cops to a mistake and they apologize, we're willing to forgive them. But we don't like being lied to, and I think that applies to both Democrats and Republicans.
Mark Fisher, is there any sense in which you think America, and you talked about this, you know, Americans don't like to be lied to and there's a kind of Puritan streak, is there any sense in which America would be ashamed in the world to have a president that doesn't live up to standards in public life?
Well, sure, and a great many Trump supporters are embarrassed by the president's language, by the way in which he behaves on Twitter and so on. And I think what you'll find is that over time, a lot of his supporters will express that embarrassment by moving on. However, if they are forced by the Democrats or other opponents of Trump to cry uncle and say, hey, we made a mistake and this guy's terrible, they're not going to do that. And so there's really a political dance going on here where if they're made to say, hey, I made a mistake, they're not going to do it, whereas if they're allowed to eventually say, let's move on, they're likely to do that.
And finally, Lisa Bloom, a mistake is actually not just a mistake, but a lie. And do you think that actually perhaps on the back of this, you represented other women in Trump's purview? Do you think we might have a rash of more women coming forward?
I hope we do. As you know, I represented 4 women who accused Trump of sexual misconduct, 2 who came out publicly, 2 who did not. And I've spoken to other women who want to come out but are afraid. You know, this is the year of the woman worldwide. Stormy Daniels is the one who had the courage to come out and speak her truth, notwithstanding a confidentiality agreement and $1 million penalty. She doesn't care. She's doing the right thing. And I would encourage any other woman who has a story to reach out to an attorney in confidence, find out what your rights are. This is our time. This is our time to be what we are meant to be, and I think to stand up to President Trump and anybody else who would abuse us.
Thank you both very much indeed.
Learn before you speak. That was President Trump's advice to the media earlier today. Not advice his own legal team appears to have taken. One of his newer lawyers, the former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, has been contradicting the president this week about a payment made to an adult film star who alleges they had an affair. But Trump's anger seemed to be focused on reporters, not his lawyers, as they quizzed him on this again today. Kylie Morris is in Washington. Kylie.
Yes, Krishnan, with friends like Rudy Giuliani, who really needs enemies, the president is still managing fallout from his comments on television earlier this week. The background, of course, is the president denies an affair 12 years ago with Stephanie Clifford, also known as Stormy Daniels. We do, though, know that there was a payment made of $130,000 by Trump's fixer, Michael Cohen, just weeks before the election. We know that because Michael Cohen is now under investigation. The president previously had kept all of this at arm's length. He didn't know about the payment. He didn't know how Michael Cohen got the money. But then Rudy Giuliani went on television and explained it all and said, well, the thing is that the president reimbursed Michael Cohen for this money. So it's all become very complicated. Lots of questions now about whether or not the president effectively broke campaign finance laws by reimbursing that payment. Today, he faced reporters on these very questions. He was clearly quite unimpressed, even angry about these questions about the payment, and insisted really it's all crystal clear.
Mr. President, when did you change your story on Stormy Daniels?
We're not changing any stories. All I'm telling you is that this country is right now running so smooth, and to be bringing up that kind of crap and to be bringing up witch hunts all the time, that's all you want to talk about. This is a witch hunt like nobody's ever seen before. When Rudy made the statements, Rudy's great, and he wasn't totally familiar with everything. He just started yesterday, so that's it.
No, he wasn't totally familiar. Rudy Giuliani now has issued a statement in an attempt to try and clarify his understanding of things. Firstly, he said again that there is no campaign violation. Say it enough times and it'll be true. The second thing that he said is that my references to timing of the payment and of President Trump's knowledge were not describing my understanding of the president's knowledge, but instead my understanding of these matters. So there you go, crystal clear, no more questions to answer, moving on.